Welcome to the I Work For Me podcast with Melina Lewis. And today I have a really exciting woman with me, Collette Merritt, and she is a Thrivalist Life coach. Now, I'm not going to go into that because I think I might end up stuffing up and not actually explaining properly what a Thrivalist Life coach is. So we're going to get Collette to explain that to us. But I'm super excited to have her on the show because she is not only a business person herself, who is an entrepreneur, but she is also someone who is working with businesses or business people to help their businesses thrive. So I really love kind of the dual aspect of what she does. So very exciting to have you on the show, and welcome, Collette.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure. Before we get stuck into what Thrivalist Life Coaching is all about, can you tell us what was the first thing you remember wanting to be when you were a little girl?
That one is easy. I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to sing and act. And I think that was one of my earliest memories is I wanted to be in the theatre. Jazz fingers and all, that was definitely my first calling, and it's still my first love. When I say that, theatre is and music is still my first love. However, I have had to taper it into some grown-up mold, which is fine because that's what happens as we get a bit older.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that there is something so magical about the stage. I don't think I ever felt a calling to the stage. It doesn't mean I don't love the sound of my own voice, clearly, but but I think that being able to act, to perform, to get up on stage is such a critical skill, and I'm always encouraging my two kids to join the drama department, and they're like,
Yes.
oh, really? And I'm like, yes, or the debating team, somewhere where you have to stand up and confidently present coherent thoughts. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and I really think it's a life skill. So yeah, my 2 cents worth. I'm just saying, as parents, do that. But I like that is something that you wanted to do, and you've obviously carried that through into your life in a different way. So yeah.
For sure. It's always been there. It's always been there in some form or another. But I've always carried it through. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So tell us then a little bit about what it means to be a Thrivalist life coach.
So roughly around this time of the year, we often hear people saying, when you say to them, "So, how are you doing?" And they say to you, "Oh," they roll their eyes and they're very dramatic and they say, "I'm surviving." And it was about 18 months ago where I thought to myself, that really saddens me to hear that someone is surviving. And I used to jokingly say to them, "No, stop it. Ants survive. I require more from you," And I would laugh and joke about it, but we didn't come here to survive. It's like that lovely quote that comes up that says, we did not come here to pay the bills and leave.
Yeah.
We came here to thrive. We came here to seek joy. We came here to find love. We came here to live life experiences. We came to learn. So it really is about moving people out of survival mode and into thriving mode. So all of my work focuses on that. In every aspect of personal development, when it comes to that, it's about moving from surviving to thriving.
Wow. Okay.
So that's how I look at that's my lens. That's how I look at life through the Thrivalist lens. Yeah. Through my Thrivalist glasses. I'm gonna have to have a set made.
Yes, you're gonna have to. I love that. So now, have you always been a coach, or what did you do before?
No. So I did 20 years in corporate, and I learned an incredible amount, and I moved into corporate because it was what was expected from me when I left high school. Study, go and get a solid job, because generationally that's what my parents' expectation was for me. And I dutifully did so because I was a good girl. That's what good children do. They fulfill those parental dreams.
Yes.
Challenging stuff that. So I dutifully went out and studied and then went into corporate.
Right.
And I worked in the space of executive support, and I worked my way up through various departments. And I worked for different companies and all the
Right.
rest of it. I was overseas for a period of time, and I worked internationally, which I absolutely enjoyed. But there was a restlessness in me that I couldn't quite put my finger on. And I couldn't quite establish exactly what it was. The interesting thing was in 2010, um, I was in a public space and I walked past a woman who stopped me and she said to me, "I'm sorry, but I just need to tell you, you're going to be retrenched, but it's going to be okay." Well, I think I was in a
Whoa.
shopping center or something and I was like, WTF, love, what's going on here? At the time, I worked with an amazing guy. It was highly unlikely, and I actually said to her, "No, that's probably not going to happen, love. But thank you. Bless your pointed head. I appreciate the warning that everything's going to be okay." Carried on. 10 days later, we got notified that our company were going through a retrenchment process. Huge, big corporate, international, and so the process was very long and laborious. My position was indeed removed from the structure. It wasn't about Collette Elizabeth, it was about the position. I knew that, all very intellectual. And I had a 10-month period where I didn't know what was going to happen next. The job was removed from the structure, and I made a decision to choose what I do next. Use this as an opportunity. I can go and find another job and do the same thing, or I can find what that restlessness is about me, what that challenge has been. And I knew it was working with people, and I knew it was some form of not necessarily coaching, but some form of could have been counseling. I couldn't quite figure out where it was going. Anyway, 5 months later, after I had made a decision and I was very comfortable with my decision, I'd put it all to bed in my mind. I was like, it's really fine. I've made this decision. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend a bit of time with the kids. I'm going to refocus our family life and I'm going to study. There was a requirement that I did some additional studying and I'm going to go off into this new job. And then they told me, no, no, and we've put your job back on the structure. You're fine. I was like,
Wow.
thank you. Thank you. I'm very touched. However, no, that's kind of not the plan. And if you've ever been in big corporate, you know that that's not no. You don't get to say no. So there was another period of time where I had to work in that space, and again, proficient at what I did, but it wasn't fulfilling my soul.
Mm.
And there was a time and a clear decision where I had to make a choice and say, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. So I knew coming out of corporate was a requirement, and I took a big bold step at the end of 2017, and it was a make or break year. Everybody told me I was having a midlife crisis. If that's what you want to call it, by all means, go for it.
Fine.
But it was really about there was a different call. So that's when I stepped into coaching. I studied for a year. You have to be well, you don't have to be, but I was certified. It's a bit like being a pilot. You have to do so many hours before they
Right.
let you loose on the rest of the world. um, and um, and I studied for a year and I got certified. And there was a couple of modalities in the certification. And then I went off and worked in the field of life coaching. So the why was a convoluted event,
Mm.
but there was a deep restlessness, and I knew it. I couldn't find peace in what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to go in search of that. And that journey took 7 years because in 2010 they retrenched me. Well, retrenched me on paper.
Yeah.
And it took 10 years for me to, for all the rational, logical reasons of, I had young children. I was putting them through, education. We were, post education, tertiary education for them. It wasn't a time in my life where I could chuck my job up and there was no responsibilities. So it took a while to extricate myself from the corporate environment. And, but when I did it, it was like that when you hear angels singing. I mean, it's a bit dramatic, but that's so me. When people open a door and they hear an angel, it was a little bit like that the first time I really had that moment in coaching, and I went, "This is where I'm meant to be." So that's kind of why we had stepped off into the coaching world.
Wow. it's an amazing story, and so interesting how you were kind of let loose, but then they grabbed you by the ankle as you were kind of about to leap and pulled you back
Changed.
in. And,
Yeah.
and wow, you hung in there for 10 years. I'm so impressed.
I
That's
left it, yeah, I mean, so I left at the end of 2017. So it
okay.
was a 7 year, a
Yeah.
7 year journey of is it, well, it was I call it the 7 year vacillation. Am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? How am
Mm,
I going to feed my kids? How am I not going to feed my kids? What about university? What am I not about? And all of those conversations and all the rest of it. Now, fortunately, we prepared for all of that. So, it wasn't a decision made lightly.
right,
Um, and I think that that's key when you're working for yourself is when you're working in corporate or you're working for someone else, there's a machine that's feeding your job
right.
of 40 other people, in my case 60,000 other people, because it was a very large corporate. But when it's you.
Hmm. Yeah.
And there's a lot of questions around that now, and how we create that funnel and all the rest of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that kind of alludes to what I wanted to try and understand from you. Like, how did you prepare for that leap? So, when you were kind of standing there in 2010, you were like, they pulled the rug out from under you, and you thought, wow, I'm going to have to go and do something completely new, and I don't know what I want to do. But in
Mm,
2017, you made a decision. And
mm.
as you say, I laughed when you said, some people called it a midlife crisis. I love that. But it's like, it's definitely not. It's maybe just more that you really knew what you wanted to do, that you'd built up the courage to do that, and you'd put things in place. So for people who say maybe are thinking about that, COVID's kind of turned a lot of things on our heads, turned us on our heads literally. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so what should people be thinking about when they decide to make that leap?
For me, it was definitely, I saw it, and let me be clear, I'm not all unicorns and roses, so it wasn't all about, all the world is going to be perfect and everything's going to be fabulous.
Right.
Um, I had my 5 processes of grief. I went through a couple of weeks of being deeply miserable about how on earth could this happen to me, because it also highlighted some belief systems that I had. I had always said to people before in my support role, don't be too concerned that nobody retrenches good people. And
Right.
I knew from feedback that I'd had with various, forms from in coach in corporate, that I knew that I delivered well at my work. I was efficient and proficient at it, so I knew I was good at what I did. So why were they then retrenching me? So I had to kind of deal with that process of understanding what all that was. But when I kind of got through all of that, it was I remember it quite clear. It was a 3 week period exactly. And when I got through that, I really had to look at it as an opportunity. What's the fork that I'm standing at right now? It was a giant cosmic fork in the road for me, and that was very much the way I looked at it, and the way I saw it was this is an opportunity to change. And I'm fortunate that my personality type quite enjoys change, so I'm like, woohoo, bring it on, let's figure something out.
Yeah.
And and um and so I spent, I mean, that was a 3, 4, 5 month period where I was thinking about what that looked like until they told me I was back on the structure. And I was like, oh,
Right.
no, 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 thank you. Thank you, but no, thank you. But you can't do that. Um, so how I prepared for it was I worked through the emotions of what I was feeling. So I'm very emotionally driven. But then my head kicks in, and then I have the vacillating conversations. So I kind of dealt with the emotion of what I was feeling. I
Wow.
worked through the grief of what that looks like being retrenched. Goodness gracious, not me. I mean, I even told the lady who walked past me in the shopping center, I even said to her, won't be me, love, don't worry, but thank you very much. Bless you. I appreciate your blessing. Um, I worked through the 5 stages of grief, and I looked at the opportunity at it as an opportunity. And then I went, okay, what do you want to do? What's the next chapter? And I think we all come to some fork in the road at some stage in our
Mm,
40s. We
yes.
often hear people pivoting at that stage. So,
Mm,
maybe they're absolutely right. Maybe it was a midlife crisis. But for me, it was about I'd almost kind of done my time. I was being released for good behavior. You
Yeah.
know, I had done my time, and I had done my early hours. Not that I don't do early hours now. I sometimes coach at 6:30 in the morning,
Right.
but I'd done my early hours and my long weekends and working, all through unusual hours of the day and all sorts of things. And it's almost like there's got to be more.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be more than this.
Mm.
And so that was kind of my opening question: is what do you want to do? What's next? What's the next adventure? And I allowed myself to kind of look and explore through that. And of course, then once you've got all the possibilities down on paper, then it's like, okay, now what's achievable? Because
Right.
what's next? I'd like to be an astronaut. Well, that's probably not going to happen. But what's achievable, and I always encourage people to do something that's not necessarily achievable. To really just you know live large, and
Mm.
to go for something that's just feels a little bit beyond our reach, because you'd be surprised what you can do when you put your mind to it.
Yeah.
And that's the way I did it. I just focused on how I felt, how I wanted to feel, and how I could be of service. That was a key factor for me, being of service.
Okay. And
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like, being a coach, so my husband and I always like have these discussions around coaches, where someone younger than us, and we're both
Bless.
over 40, we are those
Love
people.
it.
Someone younger than you is now going to be your coach. And we like look at each other and we're like, you must
WTF.
be
Yeah,
kidding.
thanks.
Not
Yeah.
and it's like, so what I love about you is that, as you said, you were in prison for a little while, figuratively. um
Golden handcuffs. Golden
yeah,
handcuffs.
golden handcuffs, golden bars, the works,
The trip. Yeah.
and um you've done your time, you've seen the ins and outs of corporates, you've dealt with people and how they work in stressful situations,
Mm.
groups of people, team leads, etc., all those kinds of things that you
Mm.
have within the corporate environment. So
Yes.
excuse my language, you're shit, you know what you're doing.
There's a certain amount of shiz that's definitely in there, and I hold on to it.
And so, that appeals to me. I don't want to be totally horrible and be mean to those under 40, but I
No,
feel
no,
as
it's a
a coach,
journey.
I feel like there's an element of experience that is required, like you've
Yeah,
walked that road. And
yeah.
and so do you feel the same, or I mean, am I putting you on the spot here?
Look, I mean, if I had to do the journey over again, I wish somebody had whispered this in my ear when I was in my teens, and I would have still kind of done this, but I would have gone a slightly different route. Um, Look, I agree with you about the experience, but I can't embody all experience. So, for instance, let me give you an example. I um, I could I could probably coach someone through the loss of uh, a child,
Right.
but it would be from an academic perspective. So
Okay.
I could academically go through the process of grief, support them, be empathetic. But thank God and please God, I never go through that. I haven't been down that road. I have lost people, someone. I have experienced loss, but I haven't had that exact experience. So your coach can't unfortunately be omnipotent. They can't be
Okay.
all being and all experience.
Mm,
So there is some things that you absolutely have to learn through life experience.
mm,
But I think I, I think life doesn't quite. There are very, very few people coming out of high school saying, "Oh, I want to be a life coach,"
right.
and that's just due to the way the education system encourages our children to look at certain professions and all those
Mm,
kind of things. So
mm,
it tends to be something that people come to a little bit later in life anyway, and maybe it is with that life experience. So it's not that I want to, and I agree with you, it's not that I want to diss someone who's younger, because it is about the life experience, but you do need a portion of life under your belt
mm.
before you can kind of coach someone, unless you're coaching them around health. By all means, if you're my fitness coach, you better be skinny, not skinny, but you better be healthy and focused and drinking a green juice.
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly.
With
You know
muscles.
what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because that's your area of expertise.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That,
I mean, I'm never going to coach somebody around the house because it's just not my area of expertise. It's my Achilles heel without a doubt. But that doesn't mean I don't daily strive to work in that space. Not
mm,
wellness coaching for myself. It doesn't mean I don't daily strive to manage that for myself, but I know that that's not an area that I will go to because I don't have the experience.
right.
Do you know what I
Okay.
mean?
Totally get it. So, do you suggest that people, so say people are looking for a coach um, for themselves, that they
Mhm.
shop around a bit?
We work with people. We work with people. Don't work with advertising.
Mm,
And 9 times out of 10, people go to a life coach because they've met them once before
right.
and they've had some form of connection. So
Okay.
it's so interesting because I do archetype mapping
Mhm.
and I work with personality types. And so there are very specific people who come to coaching with me. And it's what I would affectionately call feeling people, touchy feely people, or the exact opposite end of the spectrum, where the logic is very sound and they require the touchy feely aspect, if that kind
Okay.
of makes sense.
Yes.
So people connect with people on a there's a lovely quote, I'm trying to think who said it, that says your energy comes in the room before you do.
Totally.
And when people meet someone, whether it's online or whether it's in person, that's the stuff they remember. They think your life code, oh, that's nice. And then they kind of park it at the back of your head. And if you've had a great interaction and you've had a great um, feeling of the person,
Mm,
and even if that feeling is this person is really logical and has got a science based process, that could be what they feel, but it is about them feeling it.
mm.
So by all means shop around, but for me, I do think it's personal connection. People, especially something like life coaching, it's so personal.
Oh, yeah, so personal. And, you're going to be sharing so much with that person. Like I'm always like, if you're not prepared to share, don't go, don't go into it.
Totally,
Yeah, don't waste
totally.
your time.
But I don't know if you're clever, that sounds terrible. But if there are ways to extricate, I work. There's a specific personality type that will say to me, "I don't want to look in the past. I'm not looking in the past. I'm only looking forward. Now let's work." And you can work with that, but there are clever ways to extricate a little bit of information about why we've come from where we've come, because it's a bit
Mm,
like going to the dentist is life coaching. My favorite analogy, and I'm frightened of the dentist, so I'm the first one to say, when I say I'm frightened, it's just not a pleasant experience. Sorry, my dentist knows I love it to death. Going to the dentist is, if you have a cavity, you have to clear out the old cavity
yes.
before you can put in the new healthy,
Mm,
filling into the tooth.
yeah.
If you just bung the new healthy filling on top, there'll be rot and growth and all the rest of it. It's quite a revolting analogy now that
It
I think
is.
about it.
Yeah, I'm
But
happy to hear.
you do have to excavate the ill part of the tooth in
Totally.
order to move forward fresh and healthy. So there are ways to have those conversations. And I agree with you. And if there are people who come to me and say, listen, I'm just not prepared to do ABC, that's a tough conversation. And you have that conversation with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think that's great. And I mean, I don't think any coach is going to be asking, so tell me about your mother. We leave that with the
Yeah.
shrink. But
Yeah, for sure.
but I really think that it's interesting how you work with personalities and archetypes. So I love
Mm.
that stuff. So I'm dying to know, do you use any particular model? So I mean, if you've worked in corporate, it's been done to you. You've done the
Sure.
Myers-Briggs, or you've done one of those two, or the color ones. You're a blue
Yes. Insights and all
shake
that.
something. Yeah.
Yes.
So which methodology do you use and why?
So I use two, and I use them for different reasons. Um, it's always interesting though the same outcome is achieved, which is so fascinating. So I use Enneagram,
Ah,
and I use the science of Carl Jung, so the 4 personality main
really?
archetypes,
Mm.
and it's Myers-Briggs and all insights and all those kind of ones are actually based on that. So I use those two main archetypes. The science of Carl Jung appeals to people who need to know the science behind it, need to understand the logical, the neuroscience and the brain and all that good stuff. And then Enneagram for me appeals to people who have a focus on the spiritual,
Mm.
because what I love about Enneagram is that you're typed with a specific type, and then they have what I call my devolved state. So when I know that when I'm losing my shiz and I'm telling my kids my way or the highway, I know that I'm in my devolved state. And that's when I need to go, oh, okay, hang on, what's going on here? And then there's also an ascended state where I'm at my perfect, most happiest, and that's what I want to be in pursuit of, is
Right.
moving up into that ascended state. I mean, look, there's not going to be any divine ascension from me, because I'm just an average person from the northern suburbs, but it's that's the pursuit, is to be in that state of being, that ascended state.
Oh, wow. That's divine. Okay.
Mm.
I love.
Literally.
Literally, yeah. And I mean,
Literally.
it's that place of flow, that we all want to go to.
Yeah,
So, I write, so
exactly.
being in flow is nirvana, actually. And you get it
Exactly.
sometimes,
Yeah.
but a lot of the time you're actually just pushing through. So,
Yes.
yeah, but you got to keep trying to get there, right?
You do.
Otherwise it's not going to
You
happen.
do.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Okay, so
It's that
yeah.
consistency.
Yes, the
Yeah,
consistency. It's putting bum to chair and just kind of doing the work. Yeah. Yeah, what can
absolutely.
you do?
For sure.
So going back to your business. So, I mean,
Mm.
as you said, you came out of the 60,000 person corporate where there's a
Mm.
marketing department, an HR department, a finance department, and there are multiple people doing things in those things. Now
Yeah.
it's like just you, lady. So tell me,
One.
yeah, number
Just
one,
one.
one.
One person. One human.
Exactly.
Not even 8 hours in a day. But anyway.
Yeah. So now, how do you do it all? And obviously, mostly specifically looking at selling your business, which is selling yourself. How do
Mm.
you you spoke a little bit, you hinted around a funnel and creating that funnel.
Mm.
How do you make this all happen?
So the long and the short of it is I don't do it all myself, because
Ah,
I don't think it's physically possible. I
no.
mean, I really just don't. I think you'd lose your mind, and it's not possible to focus on your core offering when you're worrying about the finances, the funnel, and the marketing strategy.
Mm,
I believe you have to be very involved, but I don't believe you have to be managing it all. So, I mean, I have somebody who I outsource my website to, and she's very much part of the design process. It's not just a case of put this there, because it's not my area of strength, and I outsource it to her. I have a couple of other people that I involve, an accountant and things like that. Um, I also belong to various networking organizations, because that funnel comes from interaction.
right.
What they don't tell you about coaching, which is always makes me giggle now in retrospect, is coaching is not like plumbing. This makes perfect sense when you say it. When you go to these networking events, if somebody needs a plumber, they go, "Oh, I need a plumber." Fantastic, they'll go.
Yeah.
But coaching, it takes between 10 and 15 times of connecting with someone for someone to purchase.
Wow.
It's very rare that you walk into a networking event as a coach and come out with 12 referrals. It
Yeah.
just it just isn't. It's about building up that rapport and learning who that person is, and seeing whether or not you have the same value system, and spidey sense. Do they laugh at the same kind of inappropriate jokes as you, and are they going to get you, kind of thing. Um so for that reason, I work with a couple of networking groups. Namely, I belong to BNI,
Wow.
which can have quite a strong um, theory, methodology about how it approaches networking.
Mhm.
But I have 45 people in my chapter who sell me onto other people.
Oh,
And that for me is a really powerful tool. There's also nothing better than when you tell someone that Collette Merritt is the best Thrivalist coach you've ever met. she's going to be the only Thrivalist coach you've ever met, but that's irrelevant to the statistic right this moment. Because when it comes with a referral, when you say to someone, this person, I worked with them, they were absolutely fantastic, it has gravity. So people tend to look at that as well a little bit more closely, and then your 10 to 15 becomes 2 or 3 interactions. So
Right.
it moves a lot closer to the process. So I have 45 fantastic people in my chapter, and in theory, the entire BNI network, who promote me to other people. So when they're sitting around a braai and there's someone says, "Oh my goodness, I just wish I could get the staff member to work ABC," and they go, "Oh, I know this person who can come in and work with your team and help with team dynamics." Then all of a sudden, it's a possible referral. Then
Right.
they'll phone me on Monday and they say, "Talk to me. Here's the person's name and number. Have a conversation." So that really helps. So it's almost like I've got a 45 extra set of eyes and ears, which really helps for me.
Brilliant. Yeah, that
Yeah.
really, really works because,
Mm,
I'm a little bit scared of networking in the official sense. So I'm very happy to do it like one-on-one when I meet a person and they ask me what I do
sure.
and all that kind of thing. But organized events give me the heebie-jeebies
The
and I
willies.
never know what to do with myself. So, but obviously you've created a rapport with 45 other people and that works for you. Basically, you've got a sales team of 45 people. Am I right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly the structure for BNI. But there are other ones as well. I have another group that I belong to, Caffeinate. They are specifically female creative entrepreneurs. There's a couple of other ones, Girl Boss Hustle. There's Future Females. There are plenty of opportunities for
Right.
people to network, and especially now because it's all online.
Yeah.
You don't even have to leave. Before, in that have a meeting in town on a Tuesday night at 8, I'd be like, ugh, driving into town.
Yeah.
Now there would be a whole lot of thought about that. Now it's a Zoom link. I get on, I get fantastic opportunity to meet with 45, 60, 50, however many people are on the call,
Right.
women or entrepreneurs. Um, and it's right there and it's in your home. You don't have to travel and all the rest of it. So it's a lot. I wouldn't say it's easier because there is complexity with Zoom, but um, it's more accessible.
Mm.
Absolutely more accessible. So that might work a little easier for you
Yeah.
at home because you are one on one. It's you and your screen
Yes. Yeah.
taking you into the other networking opportunity. It's an option.
Yeah. Absolutely. So,
Mm.
would you then recommend that people at least try some of these networking opportunities?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, it's like all things. The more we do it, the better we get at it.
Mm.
So that's the advantage to, the more you practice your golf swing, the better you'll get at getting that little white ball into that far, far away hole. The more you practice networking and your pitch, and that's also the advantage of going to these networking things is you refine your pitch.
Yes.
There's a very famous story with a gentleman who got in the lift with Richard Branson and he had 7 seconds to pitch his business between, I think it was the first and the eighth floor or something. And he pitched his business in 7 seconds.
Brilliant.
So you get really good at pitching your business in a short space of time
Yeah.
because most of them have a time period where you can do that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay.
Mm.
So I think, we've gotten a lot of kind of like great advice from you. Like, you know, get a coach would be one. Join a networking event. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And
I should get a neon light, hey?
yeah, exactly. Maybe some strobe all around your face.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be
Yes.
great. And so any other advice you would give? So I mean, COVID, we've got people who have been retrenched or people who have
Sure.
been kind of maybe nudged to think about, oh, I could maybe go on my own, or maybe start a side hustle. So,
Mm.
what would be your advice for people who are now thinking about this new business or starting something new?
So so my philosophy is that life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us.
Okay.
So if we have been retrenched, it can feel like, I mean, I've been there. It feels, the rug has been pulled out from underneath you. You've got all these other emotional issues. It's a rejection issue. It becomes a whole bag of worms. But where is the opportunity in that? What is the next step in the adventure? You can do the same step again. You can go out and find a job in the work that you do if it's what you love. If you're waking up every day and you're going, damn, I love selling hotels, this is my thing, I absolutely adore it, please go out and find another job in the hotel industry when
Right.
that space opens up. But if it's not a full body yes, if you're not waking up in the morning and you're going, oh, I've got to go back to work, it's a physical kind of shrugging of shoulders. um, I then want you to look at opportunities. Where is the opportunity for you to either open that side hustle, do something that makes your soul sing,
Mm.
or do something, or look for the opportunity to pivot yourself
Right.
in this time. What
Wow.
can you learn? How many places at the moment are offering so many courses at
So,
a reduced rate?
yeah.
So many, so what have you always wanted to study? I mean, a silly thing like, I mean, sounds, I say silly, it's not silly, but something, if you're really passionate about astronomy,
Yeah.
go study that. Go figure out what lights you up, because these are little markers along the way of life, the journey of life. I mean, what lights you? Does writing light you up?
Totally.
Totally,
Yeah.
exactly. Would you do anything else?
No, unfortunately, I do have to do other things.
It is a. I hear you. I hear you. Your side hustle is hustling, but
Yeah.
but you would still write.
Yeah.
You would still be
Oh,
in that
absolutely.
space where, yeah, because it
Yeah.
lights you up.
Yeah.
So it really is about finding, if it's what lights you up, if it's what you love doing, by all means get up, go do it every single
Mm.
day. Go find another job in the hotel industry. Do what you love. Um, but if it isn't, if you have always wanted to go into theatre, is there an opportunity for you to learn while we're at home? And theatre is starting to open up now, but is there an opportunity for you to learn theatre makeup? Is there
Yeah.
an opportunity for you to learn about lighting? Because theatre is not only the people on the stage. There's so many aspects to it. So, um, it's those are breadcrumbs along the little journey of life that open the doors along the way. So look at it as an opportunity, and then decide what your next best step is.
Mm. Absolutely. And I love how you put that in terms of the little breadcrumbs in life.
Mm,
I've done a lot of things, lots of different things, but there has been a path. It's like
sure.
you kind of, that stone, you could get off of that stone and move on to the next
To
stone,
the next one.
because you'd been on that stone and now the stone
Mm,
was available to you, and you
sure.
could have leapt from 2 or 3 stones back onto that stone.
Yeah.
So it is, I always want to encourage people to, like, just go the course.
Yeah.
Studied something, there's a really good chance you're not going to end up doing it in life, but, like, so study something that really, like, is nice and
Lights you
exciting.
up.
And
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you've got kids at varsity, is that right?
Yeah, I have one at varsity and one still finishing high school. So, in fact, we have a parents teachers meeting tonight about subject choices.
Oh,
So it was an interesting conversation when she was about 12 or 13. And she said, I said, Lovey, I want you just to start thinking about, she's so young. I want you to just start thinking about what it is that you want to consider doing for a living. Just planting the seed of letting her think about it. Because I do, this brings me out in hives, but I do worry about us asking a 15-year-old to make the decision that will cause their entire life.
I know.
So whether so I wanted her to just think about it and have some kind of options in her mind, and she could make choices. So when we got the notification to go to parents teachers meeting tonight, she said to me, Mom, I think I want to be a YouTuber.
How nice.
Well, so I had to not stop the internal rolling of my eyes and thinking, oh, for heaven's sakes, that's not a real job. And so I said, okay, so film school then, right? That's what I'm thinking. Film school is an option. So she's like, no, Mom, a YouTuber. So
Oh,
it's about supporting, but but working within kind of what lights them up. So
I
that's the
know.
challenge.
I
Yeah.
know, and maybe drama school. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I know. I'm also like, so it's interesting. Like, although both my husband and I come from families who've always gone to university, and we went to university, and as much as I would love that for my children, because I
Yeah.
loved university less so for the education and more for the party. But
For sure.
yeah, I don't expect. I'm hoping that
Yeah.
I will say this also in a couple of years' time. I don't expect them to go to university, but would like them to study
It's
something, because
it's not for
their
every
jobs
child.
are not necessarily anything you and I can even envision. So
Or that's even been created yet.
yeah, exactly.
Um, uh, and the statistic used to be, I don't know if it's still the same, but we will have 2.8 career changes in our lifetime.
Yeah. Oh, I'm way over that.
So oh yeah, I think no, I think I'm still pretty much on the. I think I'm in the point 0.8 now, but this one's the one that's staying. But it is that challenge of supporting them without guiding them, because it has to be about what they want to do. So
Absolutely.
that's the process. But as well as kind of keeping them in the confines of, I'm not sure YouTube. I mean, what happens if YouTube disappears tomorrow? You've got to
Yeah,
think about these
exactly.
options
Yeah,
without being that parent that frightens the hell out of your child and says,
yeah. Go and study
acting's not a
accounting.
real acting's not a real career, Caitlin. You don't want to have that moment
Yeah, no,
again.
no. I know. It's so tough.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
talking about kind of like also guiding, in terms of your clients that you're seeing,
Mm,
what are some of the mistakes that, I mean, maybe in terms of themes or things that you see quite often that are either keeping people trapped or are holding them back from
mm,
finding more joy in their work?
sure,
What are
sure.
common themes?
So, I have to be very careful to keep this neutral, because my personality type is rainbows and unicorns. It's raining, and I'm like, oh, it makes the flowers grow, isn't it beautiful? And everybody else is like, oh, it's raining, and I'm like, it's so gorgeous. So I have to be very careful to temper the neutral through
Yeah,
this process. Um, I would have to say the first challenge I see is people not learning about themselves. you
right,
know, Understanding self is probably the most critical key to everything, to every relationship you have in your life.
right.
Your relationship with yourself, it's important to
Mm,
understand yourself, who you are, where you come from, why you do what you do, the impact your parents and grandparents and DNA and your time that you were, born into, what
right,
that impact is on you, and how you were put together, between 0 and 25.
right.
So really about understanding what your triggers are. Those only come with a little bit of life experience.
Yeah,
Although at the moment I'm working with a fantastic young lady, and she's got the ability to understand what her personality triggers are, but to already circumvent them, which is fantastic.
amazing.
So I take my hat off to her. So really understanding self is something that I would say is the cornerstone of everything.
Right.
Um, And then I want to say the other challenge is reality.
Hmm.
The bond and the reality of what we think the norm is of life, having to go out there and earn, be in a reputable business, and earn a certain amount of money so that you have a certain kind of car and house and all that kind of thing.
Right.
Sometimes the responsibility of reality can stop people from dreaming and stop people from going after the joy in what they do.
Mm,
That's when a side hustle or a passion project is the most important thing.
right.
But I want to say is to do the work that really lights you up, or a passion project, or a side hustle. Make sure you spend as much time as you can in that space, because it'll kind of get you through the things that you have to do to pay the bond and
Mm,
to do all those other things. That's the two challenges that I would say at the moment. And sometimes people kind of the it's funny. I was doing social media for tomorrow, and I always make sure that I have something light on a Friday. So I've put up a funny meme saying something along the lines of, what I need for today is, and I think it says coffee, self-cleaning elves, a notification that I've won lotto, and there's a couple of other things, like an amazing sense of humor, pixie dust, and fairy lights or something. I can't even remember the whole thing. Um, and and wouldn't it be, I often say to people, wouldn't it be wonderful if we spend time in that game of, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could win the lotto tomorrow? Who knows? But, people will very quickly say to you, the chances of you doing that are 1 in 250 billion. They've almost killed the opportunity to dream and
Uh,
where's the pixie dust in telling me the statistic?
yeah.
So that's what I mean by the reality sometimes holds them back to dream. So
Mm.
bring on the pixie dust and the lotto notification.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I know. I might be one of those that doesn't buy lotto because of those statistics. Um,
Statistics.
I know. The my favorite thing around winning kind of the lottery is I read that beautiful book, The Time Traveler's Wife, and how
Oh
he
yes.
time travels ahead in time and then gets the lottery numbers and then time travels back, and then that's how they both, like, she's an artist and he works in a library, and they live this wonderful life because he went,
Idyllic.
that's how
Yes.
they got their money.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's the only way you
Yeah.
do that thing.
But I don't have a time machine, so how
No,
do you want me to do this? So now your reality's kicked in, you see, but you
exactly.
haven't. You have, there's so many, and the interesting thing is, and maybe this is another reason why my outlook is unicorns and rainbows, is when we lived in another country when I was a young child, under the age of 7, and my mother won the lottery.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, I mean, she won it with 9 other people. They took a ticket. It was $10, and they all put $1 in. So this is in the late 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, that's even in the previous, millennia. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so far away. Um, they all put $1 in, and they took it as a department thing. They all did it together, and they won.
Oh my,
So, when people say to me, you know what the chances are of you winning? I'm like, yes, I do know actually, because
pretty high.
by proxy, my mom won it, but we did experience what that looks like. So I'm like, yeah, I've been there, I've done that. So then people will say to me, yeah, but there's no chance of you doing it twice. I'm like, actually, no, I don't
Oh,
subscribe to that theory. So,
yeah.
it's a fine line between looking like a complete crazy nutter, in a world where unicorns come to the front door and rainbows emit out of the kitchen.
Yeah.
But it is a fine line of not shutting down the possibilities.
Mm,
We
absolutely.
don't know what the possibilities are, and we're so busy
Yeah.
living in reality. Oh, well, that type of thing never happens to me.
Yeah.
Well, okay, if you say so, then it won't happen.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to maybe throw this one at you. So because you're all unicorns and rainbows, have you
Only on Tuesdays.
only on Tuesdays and on Fridays something light. But then
Yes.
it's lotto. So any failures that have stood out for you, but that on the rainbow side have helped you change or tweak the way you do things
Mm,
and do them better?
mm. When we were going through the questions that you send, and I was reading through them, and I was thinking, what on earth am I going to put down for this? I think the thing that brought me into a space of standing on my own 2 feet so much more was my Joburg team that disappeared. So when I came out of corporate, I was joining a team that would be using me down in Cape Town, but there was this machine that was already creating the funnel and all the rest of it. And when that team disbanded, I realized I was solo. And you know, you could look at that and go, oh my goodness, it's the end of the world. The sky is falling,
Mm.
chicken little, all that good stuff. But actually, it was the opportunity for me to stand up and go, okay, that's happened. What now? I
Mm.
can either go and find a corporate job,
Mm.
I can go back to what I know, I can go back to what I'm comfortable in, or I can make this work. and it almost kind of leveled me up. It required that I have a whole different way of thinking about it. And it honestly did do that. So losing my Joburg team, I mean, I haven't lost the people; they're physically there, but from a business support perspective, demanded that I level up in my
Mm,
business life, and
mm,
that was the growth opportunity for me. So
absolutely.
sorry, that's annoyingly positive, but that's kind of how I do this.
I love that. It's yeah, but I'm sure that you went through stuff, right? Because
Sure.
when you get that kind of like, I always think of like bath plug, that like yank
Yes.
out, yeah, and everything like just goes whoosh, and it's gone, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh,
WTF, right? You're staring at the plug and what's going
yeah,
on
and
here?
everything's gone. Standing there looking at that empty bath, you are
Yes.
having to dig deep and ask yourself,
Yes.
as you said, am I going to go back to what I know? Or am I going to kind of
Yes.
really try and level up, and take the next
Mm.
step and scare the bejesus out of me, because
200%.
that's what that is. And
Yes.
yeah, it's hard. It's hard. You've made it
It
sound
is.
very good.
I know. Sorry. I'm sorry. It is real, and I really do have to temper it with my non-unicorn hat.
Mm,
But I think this is also one of the joys in getting older. And I know this sounds terrible. Sorry, I don't mean to sound condescending when I say this. But as we get older and we go through these cycles of crazy or drama that happens in our life,
yeah.
we learn that we can make it.
Yes.
We learn that we can look at the bottom of the bath. I mean, I actually have a friend of mine who, when something drastic happens in her life, she'll scream. I won't scream, but she'll scream, plot twist. So, I mean, so from a writing perspective,
I love
just think
it.
about that plot twist. So I physically actually look in the opposite direction of what I was doing, going, okay, what's over there? Yes, I think the gift is as you get older, you get better at realizing that you will cope with it. When I feel that when we're young, often you'll hear people say, "What would you tell a younger version of yourself?" And many people say, don't worry so much.
Mm,
You worry about things that'll never happen.
mm,
And and we worry about it because we worry we won't be able to deliver and come out on top or produce the result we want. As we get older, we've faced many bottoms of the bath
mm.
and we've learned that the tap will flow again, like in Cape Town.
Yeah. Like in
The
Cape
tap will flow again.
Town again.
And there will be other opportunities where the water level will dip and you will think, okay, what's going on here? um, but that you will make it and that you will find a way through. So there is nothing, and I think this is really key. There is no failure. There is winning and there is learning.
Mm,
If you choose to go back to corporate, it's not failure. It's a decision. It's a data point where you have made the decision that being in that structure, being in the safety of a corporate world that provides you with that funnel is absolutely fine for that person.
absolutely.
But I think if you're entrepreneurial by nature, you're going to try and find, you're going to find how to fill that bath again.
Mm,
And I think as we get older, that's the gift, is we learn to rely on ourselves a bit more.
mm.
And
Yes.
we learn to say, I've been here before, I've had this plot twist before, maybe not exactly the same, but similar, and I will find a way. I don't know what it is today. Any ideas, kind of moments. But but um, you will be able to rely on yourself to get there.
Mm.
And
Oh,
again, it's annoyingly positive. Sorry, you do have to work through what the emotions are that come up.
mm,
So you will have those emotions of, do I go back to corporate? Do I keep pushing ahead? It's really about why you want to be an entrepreneur. What is the trade-off for you to stay working for yourself versus going back into the corporate world? And none of that is bad. It's all data. It's a
mm,
data point where you make a decision at each point of the way, what works for you and what works for you and your family. because we rarely make these decisions isolated.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Mm.
I think that's very important for people to remember and
Mm.
to be okay with,
Yeah,
or like I often say to people who are immigrating, like, you don't have to. You can come back. No
yeah,
one's going to laugh at you. You don't have to feel
sure.
like a failure, like if it doesn't work out.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, it's the same thing. That's a very big
It's all
decision.
data.
It's
It's
all
all data. It's all
mm,
data, and it's the decision about whether or not it's the right thing for you and your family. If if being an entrepreneur were to step into the realm of threatening my mental health,
yes.
I would probably say, okay, now's the time to go back to corporate. Now, let me rest in the safety. Nowadays safety is relevant, but relative, but in the safety of being within someone's employ. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
But at the moment, I can still find a way to fill the bath, and it fills my soul at the same time, and that's critical for me.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think, you worked hard to figure out what it is that, lights you up and,
Mm. It
makes,
what didn't come easy, that's
yeah,
for
exactly.
sure.
Yeah, and kind of gets you all sparkly and fired up. And
Yeah.
it took time, but in
Mm.
order to do that, you needed to know that you were safe, financially for your family. And so you
Mm.
stuck it out in corporate, which is great,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's
Which was what was required.
and they benefited and they paid you and all is good in the hood.
Absolutely.
So
Exactly.
there's really no shame, I almost want to say, in any.
Absolutely.
It's like I'm a big fan of saying, do what's right for you. When I
Yeah.
chat to moms now around COVID, some moms are very fearful and how they engage with their children and what they allow their children to do. And I'm like, do what's right for you. It's fine. Like
Absolutely.
I'm going to do my own kind of crazy and you do yours,
Sure.
and
Mm.
and it's fine. Like,
Mm.
so yeah, just let go of the judgment, I suppose.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Colette, kind of as an ending off, just last question.
Mm.
Um, Tell us what you love most about what you do.
Um, I really love. Oh well, because I'm an enthusiast personality type. I love working with people, so that's the advantage to that. I love. There is a moment when you coach. And I was nervous that we would lose it in Zoom with Zoom and being online, but we don't. I'm very pleased to say there is a moment in coaching when somebody is working through a challenge of some particular type and they have a breakthrough. There's a
Mm,
physical reaction in their body, their eyes physically dilate. There's all of a sudden an awareness on their face where they get exactly what's happened, whatever the situation is, and all of a sudden it all falls into place. That breakthrough moment, seeing that on people's face, that's the one that lights me up. That's the one that where I realized that if they hadn't come to coaching that day, they would be walking around still without that knowledge.
mm,
Today, going forward, tomorrow, they'll be in a better place. And I get very excited about those breakthrough moments for people. Um, I love I love the creativity of running my own business
hmm.
because I don't do all. So I do my own marketing. I
Right.
don't necessarily get it all right. So in the next step is to employ someone to do my marketing because they're specialists and that's their gift. But I do my own stuff at the moment, and rightly or wrongly, I thoroughly enjoy the creativity of that. So
Oh,
that's a beautiful
fun.
spot. Yeah, I love that. Um, and I love the flexibility it gives me. I really do love the flexibility it gives me of being a mom, a wife. Sick leave's interesting because you don't have to apply for it.
Mhm.
You don't
Oh,
have to send
yes.
a note and say, "Listen, I'm terribly sorry. I've got a terrible cough." You don't have to do any of that. You just walk to another part of the house and go, "I'm not going to be working today." Um, I love that, and I love working from home. It's
Mm,
always been one of the things that I wanted to do. COVID's just accelerated the process.
yeah.
So, working from home, managing my own time, being with people. So networking events I get very excited about. and those breakthrough moments of clarity when you're working with someone is the stuff that lights me up.
Oh yeah, I can just imagine. It must be magic.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
there you go. It's the unicorns and rainbows again. Um,
Sorry. I'm not going to apologize. It really is a
don't.
beautiful set. It's a
No.
fabulous set of glasses that I live with.
Yes, absolutely. So, Collette, how can people get hold of you?
Fantastic. Thanks for asking. I have a website, www.btc, which stands for Be the Change,
Right.
not Bitcoin. Had that moment. So btccoaching.co.za. I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. And I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Reach out, email me. You can email me as well. There's a way to reach out to me on my website. And I would love to chat.
Brilliant. Oh, fantastic. It's been really awesome chatting to you. And you're
Lovely.
by far the most positive person I've definitely had on the show. So you win.
It's not a competition.
Oh, whatever. Yeah,
Rolling Mars.
so much for your time. It's been great.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Such a pleasure. Cheers.